The music pounded through my bones as I stood frozen, staring at the scene unfolding before me. My best friend of 10 years, Zayn, had his arms wrapped around Valencia, my girlfriend of 4 years. She was pressed against the wall of Thaddeus Wright's kitchen, her fingers tangled in Zayn's hair as they embraced, completely oblivious to my presence. The solo cup I'd been holding slipped from my grasp, splashing red punch across the tiled floor. That's when they finally noticed me. "Lachlan?" Valencia gasped, pushing Zayn away. Too late. The damage was done. I didn't say a word. Couldn't. The betrayal had lodged itself in my throat, choking any response I might have mustered. Instead, I simply turned and walked out, ignoring their calls behind me as I pushed through the crowd of drunk college students. 10 years of friendship and 4 years of love, all destroyed in an instant. 14 weeks ago, I discovered the truth. At present, I was sitting in the university library, my economics textbook open but untouched as I watched them laughing together across the room. They'd become the campus couple, flaunting their relationship everywhere. Zayn, my former best friend since middle school, and Valencia, the girl I'd planned to propose to after graduation. "They're not worth the brain space you're giving them," a cool, unfamiliar voice said beside me. I turned to find a girl sliding into the chair across from me. She had raven black hair that fell in waves past her shoulders, piercing green eyes, and the kind of poise that spoke of privilege. I recognized her immediately, Cassia Winterbrooke, heiress to the Winterbrook luxury resort chain and notoriously selective about her social circle. "Excuse me?" I managed, surprised that someone like her would even notice me, let alone speak to me. "You're Lachlan Ryder, right? The guy whose best friend and girlfriend decided to star in their own little soap opera." She nodded toward Zayn and Valencia. "You've been staring at them for 20 minutes and your page hasn't turned once." I felt heat rise to my face. "I wasn't." "Save it." She waved her hand dismissively. "I've been watching you watch them. It's getting pathetic." Her bluntness caught me off guard. Most people had been treating me with kid gloves since the breakup, offering sympathetic glances and empty platitudes. No one had been this direct. "You don't know anything about it," I said, gathering my books to leave. "I know Zayn Mercer is taking your econometrics class even though he's a communications major because Valencia's in it." Casha arched a perfectly shaped eyebrow. "And I know you dropped that class to avoid them, which is why you're struggling through advanced economic theory alone." I stopped mid-motion. "How do you know that?" "I make it my business to know things," she replied simply. "And I have a proposition for you." "Not interested." I shoved my books into my backpack. "Even if it helps you get even with them?" Her voice dropped lower, but her eyes held mine with remarkable intensity. "Because they deserve it, Lachlan. And deep down, you know you want to make them feel what you felt." I should have walked away. Should have told her I wasn't interested in revenge. That I was better than that. But the truth was I wasn't better. Not now. And the pain was still too raw, too present. "What did you have in mind?" I asked, sinking back into my chair. Casha's face brightened with purpose. "Meet me at Winterbrook Cafe tomorrow at 7. We'll discuss strategy." As she stood to leave, I noticed Zayn watching us with undisguised curiosity. Casha noticed too, and to my surprise, she leaned down and brushed her lips against my cheek, lingering just long enough to make it look personal. "See you tomorrow, Lachlan," she said loudly enough for her voice to carry. Then she straightened, tossed her designer bag over her shoulder, and strode away, leaving me touched by the first genuine spark of interest I'd felt in months. Winterbrook Cafe turned out to be the high-end coffee shop on the north side of campus, the one most students couldn't afford to frequent. I arrived at 7:05, feeling out of place in my worn jeans and university hoodie among the sleek, well-dressed patrons sipping artisanal beverages. Casha was already there, commanding a corner table like it was a corporate boardroom. She wore a simple black dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail that emphasized her sharp features. "You're late," she said as I approached, not looking up from her tablet. "By 5 minutes. In my world, that's late." She finally glanced up. "But I'll forgive you, since punctuality isn't part of our arrangement." I sat down across from her. "Is there an arrangement? You haven't told me what you want." A waiter appeared with 2 coffees, setting one in front of me. "I ordered for you," Casha explained. "Dark roast, no sugar, splash of cream. You seem like that type." She was right, which was unnerving. "Thanks, but you still haven't." "Zayn Mercer," she interrupted, placing her tablet down. "He did more than steal your girlfriend, didn't he?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I've done my research, Lachlan. You two roomed together freshman and sophomore year. You introduced him to your friend circle. You helped him get a job at the campus bookstore when he was broke. Her eyes narrowed. And when his mother was sick last year, you drove him home every weekend for a month to visit her. I shifted uncomfortably. How do you know all this? Like I said, I make it my business to know things. She leaned forward. The point is, he didn't just betray you romantically. He betrayed your entire friendship. Everything you did for him. And now he's walking around campus like he's won some grand prize. The accuracy of her assessment stung. What's your interest in all this? You don't even know me. Casha's expression hardened. Let's just say Zayn and I have history too. Last semester we worked on a group project together in business ethics. Ironic, considering he has none. She took a sip of her coffee. He took credit for my portion of the work when I missed the presentation due to family matters. Cost me my 4.0 GPA. That's unfortunate but hardly comparable to what he did to me, I pointed out. True. But it's enough for me to want to see him taken down a peg. She studied me for a moment. Here's my proposal, we date. I nearly choked on my coffee. What? Not for real, she clarified, rolling her eyes. We pretend to date. Publicly. Visibly. We make ourselves the couple everyone talks about. And why would that matter to Zayn? Casha's face showed determination. Because Lachlan, men like Zayn only want what they think they can't have. Right now he believes he's won. He took Valencia from you, and in his mind that makes him superior. She leaned closer. But if you suddenly upgrade dramatically, it negates his victory. Upgrade. I repeated skeptically. Don't be modest. You know what I mean. She gestured to herself. The Winterbrooke name carries weight. I'm wealthy, connected, and let's be honest, not hard to look at. Zayn will notice. And it will eat at him. I had to admit, there was a certain appeal to her plan. But something still didn't add up. What do you get out of this? Casha remained composed. That's my business. Let's just say I have my reasons for wanting to be seen with someone like you. Someone like me? Genuine. Loyal. The anti-Zayn. She shrugged. Plus, your GPA in economics is impressive. I could use your help with Professor Harrington's class. There it was. Tutoring. The real currency on campus. So I help you with econ, you help me make Zayn jealous? I summarized. Not just jealous. We make him regret ever betraying you. She extended her hand across the table. Do we have a deal? I hesitated, knowing this was probably a bad idea. Revenge rarely solved anything. But the memory of finding Zayn and Valencia together flashed through my mind, along with the humiliation of the weeks that followed, their public displays of affection, their thinly veiled attempts at apology, the pitying looks from our mutual friends. Deal? I said, taking her hand. Her skin was cool against mine, her grip surprisingly firm. The moment our hands touched, I sensed this arrangement might become more complicated than either of us anticipated. Our relationship began with calculated precision. Casha was nothing if not strategic. We started subtly, study dates at prominent campus locations, coffee runs between classes, walking together across the quad. She insisted on physical contact, her arm linked through mine, her hand casually resting on my forearm during conversations. People need to believe this is real, she explained as she intertwined her fingers with mine while we walked through the student union. Body language speaks louder than words. The charade was exhausting at first. Casha was intense, demanding, and had very specific ideas about how our fake relationship should appear. Yet as days passed into weeks, something unexpected began to happen. I found myself genuinely enjoying her company. Beneath her calculating exterior lay a sharp wit that matched her intelligence. She had a dry sense of humor that emerged in private moments, and contrary to her privileged upbringing, she worked harder than almost anyone I knew, managing her classes while handling various responsibilities for her family's business. My father expects me to take over the East Coast operations after graduation, she explained one evening as we studied in my apartment. The Winterbrooke name might open doors, but I still have to prove I can walk through them on my own merit. The pressure she placed on herself explained her intensity, her need for perfect grades. It also explained why Zayn's academic betrayal had hit her so hard. You know, I said, closing my textbook, for someone who's supposed to be using me for tutoring, you haven't asked me to explain a single economic concept. She glanced up from her laptop. Maybe I overestimated how much help I needed. Or maybe you had other motives all along? A smile played at the corners of her mouth. Don't get ahead of yourself, Ryder. The plan is working, isn't it? She was right. Our relationship was generating exactly the reaction we'd hoped for. Zayn's initial curiosity had evolved into obvious discomfort whenever he saw us together. Twice I'd caught him watching us from across the cafeteria, his expression darkening when Casha would lean in close to whisper something in my ear. Valencia was even more affected. She tried to corner me after class several times, always with the same question. Is it serious between you two? I gave her the answer Casha had scripted. I've never met anyone like her. It wasn't even a lie. The real shift came at the Founders' Day Gala, an annual university fundraiser that Casha's family partly sponsored. She had insisted I attend as her date, dressing me in a tailored suit she'd had delivered to my apartment. Consider it an investment in our plan, she'd said when I protested the expense. The night of the gala, when I picked her up at her off-campus apartment, the sight of her left me momentarily speechless. She wore a deep green dress that matched her eyes, her dark hair swept up to reveal the elegant curve of her neck. She looked regal, untouchable, and for the first time, I felt a genuine pang of inadequacy. You look beautiful, I managed to say. She smiled genuinely, perhaps at the sincerity in my voice. You clean up well yourself, Lachlan? At the gala, we made our grand entrance, her hands securely in mine. The event was populated by university donors, faculty, and select students, including, as Casha had anticipated, Zayn and Valencia. They were standing near the beverage table when we arrived, and I watched Zayn's jaw tighten as his gaze landed on us. Don't look at them, Casha murmured, her lips close to my ear. Look at me. Tonight they don't exist. I followed her lead, allowing her to introduce me to various influential people, department heads, local business owners, even the university president. To my surprise, she spoke of my academic achievements with genuine pride, positioning me as a rising economic mind rather than just her date. Lachlan's thesis on sustainable economic models is exactly the kind of forward thinking we need, she told the dean of the business school, her hand resting lightly on my arm. Later, as we danced, I couldn't help but notice how naturally we moved together. The initial awkwardness of our arrangement had faded, replaced by a comfortable familiarity that felt increasingly less like pretense. They haven't stopped watching us, Casha noted, her voice low as we turned slowly on the dance floor. I resisted the urge to look. Let them watch. She studied my face with newfound curiosity. You're different tonight. How so? More confident. Less concerned with their opinion. Her lips curved into a smile. I like it. The evening culminated exactly as Casha had planned. As we prepared to leave, Zayn intercepted us near the exit, Valencia hovering uncertainty behind him. Quite the performance tonight, Lachlan, he said, his tone falsely casual. Never figured you for someone who'd chase dollar signs. I felt Casha tense beside me, but before she could respond, I found myself speaking. You know, Zayn, I used to think losing Valencia was the worst thing that could happen to me. I smiled, genuinely, because at that moment I realized it was true. Turns out it was the best. It showed me who my real friends are. And who they aren't. I turned to Casha, whose surprise was evident only in the slight widening of her eyes. Ready to go? She nodded, her composure quickly recovered. As we walked away, I heard Zayn call after us, but his words no longer mattered. For the first time since that night at the party, I felt completely free of his shadow. In the car, as we drove away from the gala, an unfamiliar silence settled between us. That wasn't part of the script, Casha finally said. I know. I went off book. She turned to look at me, her expression unreadable in the dim light. Did you mean it? What did you say back there? I considered the question carefully. Yes, but not for the reasons you might think. 2 weeks after the gala, everything changed. What had begun as a calculated scheme had evolved into something neither of us had anticipated. Casha and I still maintained our public appearances, but our private moments had taken on a different quality, more genuine, less performative. We were studying in the library when Zayn approached our table, alone and visibly agitated. We need to talk, he said, addressing me directly while pointedly ignoring Casha. We have nothing to talk about, I replied, not looking up from my textbook. It's about Valencia. His voice dropped lower. She broke up with me. Now he had my attention. I glanced up, noting the dark circles under his eyes, the rumpled state of his usually impeccable clothes. That's not my concern anymore. She says she made a mistake. That what we did to you was wrong. His eyes flicked briefly to Casha. She wants to talk to you. To explain. I felt Casha's foot gently press against mine under the table, our silent signal when one of us needed support. But I didn't need it this time. Tell Valencia I wish her well, I said evenly. But I'm not interested in revisiting the past. Zayn's expression hardened. So that's it? 3 years with her means nothing now that you've got. He gestured dismissively at Casha. This arrangement? Casha's eyebrow arched dangerously. Careful, Zayn. Remember who you're speaking to. Oh, I know exactly who I'm speaking to, he snapped. The Ice Queen who never dates anyone but suddenly decides Lachlan is worth her time? Please. Everyone knows this is just another Winterbrooke power play. I stood up so quickly my chair nearly toppled. That's enough. Zayn stepped back, momentarily startled by my vehemence. You don't get to come here and insult her, I continued, my voice low but firm. You lost the right to any opinion about my life the moment you betrayed my trust. Now leave before I forget we were ever friends. For a tense moment I thought he might argue. Instead, his shoulders slumped in defeat. You've changed, Lachlan. Yes, I agreed. Thank you for noticing. After he left, I sat back down, suddenly aware of the several pairs of eyes watching us from nearby tables. Casha was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. What? I asked. Nothing, she said, returning her attention to her books. But a moment later she added quietly, that was unexpected. Was it? She met my eyes then, and for once her carefully maintained mask slipped. You defended me. Of course I did. Even though what he said was essentially true. This began as an arrangement. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Maybe it did. But is that all it is now? The question hung between us, weighty with implication. For once, Casha seemed at a loss for words. Later that evening, as we walked across the nearly empty campus, she finally broke the silence that had followed us from the library. I haven't been entirely honest with you, Lachlan. I stopped walking. About what? She turned to face me, the setting sun casting her features in warm golden light. About why I approached you that day in the library. Your GPA, I said. Zayn's betrayal. She shook her head. Those were factors, yes. But not the whole truth. She took a deep breath. I noticed you long before that day. In economic theory class last semester. You asked questions no one else thought to ask. You challenged Professor Martin's theories. You stayed after to continue discussions. I stared at her, puzzled. I don't remember seeing you in that class. I sat in the back row. Always arrived late, left early. She smiled faintly. Family business calls. But I noticed you. Why didn't you say anything from the start? Because girls like me don't approach guys like you without a reason. Her honesty was disarming. When I saw what happened with Zayn and Valencia, I saw an opportunity. A reason to talk to you that wouldn't reveal that I'd been interested. The admission hung in the air between us, reshaping everything I thought I knew about our arrangement. So the revenge plan, I began, was real, she assured me quickly. I did want to help you get back at Zayn. I just had additional motives. I processed this information, trying to reconcile it with the calculating, strategic Casha I thought I knew. Why tell me this now? She looked away, suddenly vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. Because what started as strategic has become complicated. For me. Her eyes returned to mine, challenging. Has it become complicated for you too? I reached for her hand, intertwining our fingers as she had taught me to do for show. Except this time there was no audience. No Zayn or Valencia to impress or hurt. Just us, standing in the fading light of day. Yes, I admitted. It has. Relief flooded her features, followed quickly by a smile. Not the practiced, perfect smile she wore for others, but something real and slightly imperfect. Then perhaps, she said, stepping closer, we should renegotiate our arrangement. As the distance between us closed, I realized that the revenge I'd sought had transformed into something entirely unexpected. The pain Zayn and Valencia had caused had led me here, to this moment, with someone who saw value in me before I believed it existed. I think, I replied, my free hand moving to rest lightly at her waist, that's an excellent business decision. Her laugh was soft against my cheek. Always the economist. And you're always the strategist. So what's our next move? She pulled back slightly to meet my gaze, her green eyes serious despite her smile. I'm thinking of long-term investment rather than short-term gain. Sounds risky. The best investments usually are. She squeezed my hand. But I've done my research. I think the returns will be worth it. As we walked away together, I glanced back once at the library where Zayn had confronted us, where this journey had begun 3 months ago with a broken heart and whispered plans of revenge. I felt no triumph at his downfall, no satisfaction in Valencia's regret. Instead, I felt gratitude. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes, it's moving forward and finding something or someone you never knew you were looking for. In Casha's calculated plot for retribution, we'd both found something neither of us had anticipated. A genuine connection that defied our original intentions. And perhaps that was the sweetest victory of all.